All right. Welcome, everybody, to our second to last panel of the day for the New Year's Indie Book Blitz. I am super excited because this is the adventure portal, the LitRPG portal, and adventure. Hold on, let me back up. This is the LitRPG and adventure portal fantasy panel. I can tell I'm getting tired now. We have got a whole group of brand new faces who I've never had on the channel before. We've got Craig and Amelia and David and Essie all on, and they write different aspects of these genres. And I know it's like a lot of genres to throw together, but so much crossover seems to happen in these genres. So what we're going to do is go around. I'm going to let you kick us off, Craig, and we'll just go around the window. And introduce yourself and which versions of fantasy you write.
Good evening. I'm Craig Hamilton. I write a post-apocalyptic science fiction lit RPG in the System Apocalypse universe. It's called System Apocalypse Relentless, about a bounty hunter finding his way in this, post-apocalyptic society that is full of, game mechanics and leveling up and monsters spawning everywhere.
Oh, that's awesome. And so do you have like a party system in yours?
He does end up with a couple party members eventually, but it's more like a personal level up system. So you get a class and you level up the class and gain abilities within it.
Yeah, I love that. I love lit RPG, both sci-fi and fantasy. I don't write it, but I love to read it.
Same.
Yeah, Amelia, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your books?
So I write science fiction and fantasy, and I like to sprinkle in a little dash of mythology and history in all of my different stories. I am a professional copywriter. That's kind of my day job, a homeschool advocate, and I also publish like I said, science fiction and fantasy. My debut novel is actually on my blog. It's Shadows of the Ambassadorial Halls. And it's a lot of different genres put together. So to the top genre, kind of encompassing all of it, would be noble, bright fantasy adventure. But there's also a slow burn romance and a lot of court intrigue. So we've got a lot of different elements going on.
Yeah. So when you have adventure, is yours like questing adventure or other kind of adventure?
So it has three different point of views, and one of them is kind of your more traditional quest, where they actually have to go after an artifact that was stolen in order to stop a mad bandit king. So it has more of a traditional adventure to it.
Nice. Love that. David, welcome.
Hello. I started out writing hard sci-fi. That was my first novel, but I really love epic fantasy, so that's what I've mostly been working on. And then I came across Dow's System Apocalypse Lit RPG. I knew Dow before I knew he was a writer. I was quite surprised. So I read it and I thought, oh, this is really cool. Branched out and wound up writing. I've got the third book in the trilogy mostly done at this point, and that's really, really drawn me, and I just kind of love that whole concept of the system. It's really lovely.
Yeah, and so I know you said that you and Craig have both worked on that sort of multi-author project. Is it hard to work with so many different, authors and moving parts?
Massively, yeah, because there's such a huge system bible, of the whole series that you've got to keep up on. And every time I get a cool, interesting idea, it's like, wait, I need to check this out and see if it'll actually work. And no, it won't. Okay, do I work around it or just do something else? So it's challenging, but it's entertaining.
It helps that Tao has completed the main series, so it's 12 books completely written of the main series, and so we can kind of do things on the side in parallel as long as we don't contradict that main series.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's like a group project that also just evolves and evolves and evolves instead of being stuck with the bad parts.
Yeah. It's always a team there to help out. That helps too.
Yeah. And SE, good to have you on and to meet you. Thank you for taking the time to hop on with us.
Likewise, so glad to be here. So I write adventure fantasy for young adults currently. I do have other works in the making. I do nonfiction as well, but I would say like the only published work I have currently is the fantasy young adult book. So
Yeah, so we got a large, wide range. We have some science, we have apocalypse, we
That
have
is
young
definitely a
adult.
genre that I enjoy reading as well.
Yeah. So we got people watching live. We're interested to know, drop in the comments which of these genres you really lean toward. We will be answering questions live as they pop up. And if you miss this and you're watching the replay and you're like, no, don't worry. You can leave your comments in the chat or comments in the comment section, because I guess the chat will be turned off. And I will get them and make sure that the authors get them back. I can tell that it's been a long day of panels at this point, because you guys are having to put up with my stuttering and stammering, but thank you. So we have been talking a lot this week, when we started this up yesterday, just about different aspects of hope and darkness and romance and the little things that make our books unique. And we had our dragon panel. When you meet a reader for the first time, if you're describing, really what makes your books yours, how do you describe your books to those potential readers? And do you have a specific book that you would recommend for someone to pick up from you if they were meeting you for the first time?
Craig, I think you're up first.
Oh. Well, I mean,
order.
you got to start at the beginning, at least with my series. My first book is called A Fistful of Credits. It picks up with bounty hunter Hal Mason as he is, trying to bring in a fugitive who's, skipped bail. And so that's the start of his adventure with the system, because the system comes online, technology stops working. He goes to taser the guy and electricity doesn't work anymore. So, he starts having to, fight to survive as monsters start spawning in the middle of Pittsburgh, and it gets crazy from there. But it's dealing with loss and, a lot of people dying from, not being prepared, not having the right classes, being massively over leveled by these monsters that appear. So it's very grim, at least for the first book or two, really.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that when you say grim, would you put it in like grim dark to where, there's no hope and they're struggling knowing there's no hope from the beginning? Or do you feel like that's just an element to more of like a noble story?
There's hope, but it's distant. 90% of humanity dies within the first year of the system apocalypse. So,
Wow.
There are survivors out there. They do make it. Pockets of civilization do all right in some places, but aliens end up owning a lot of Earth. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so skipping to David, since you guys write sort of in that same vein, when you talk about your books to other people, what do you feel like are some of the hallmarks that they can look forward to in what you write?
Well, if I'm speaking specifically to the people I know, I'm going to talk about how much of myself is in the book. It's the main character is queer and neurodivergent. And to them, it's like Craig said, it's like this giant apocalypse happened. But these are for people that were really struggling with life and the way it was. So for them, another aspect of it that came out was this is a restart. This is an opportunity to rebuild and embrace a whole new kind of life where they're superpowered. And that's just fun to play with. I like to really explore the hope and growth that happens even in something really terrible. That appeals to me. And it kind of fits back with a lot of my life too, because I've had an interesting life. Mm-hmm. So that is something I really like to accent and bring out. That's what people should get from it, is a joyful fun through conflict and adversity.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for sharing. I love hearing about the diverse characters from every regard. And that's one of the things that I think makes the indie community shine so much, doing the panels and meeting people from all different backgrounds. Like there's books for everybody. You just have to find the right ones.
Oh, yeah.
How about you, Essie? What's some hallmarks of your books?
I would say maybe feeling like you're not, you've kind of like escaped the real world. You've gone into like a different, just a whole different planet. I'm really passionate about world building in my books, and so there's a lot of that, a lot of different like things, like nature and things like that in the books that make them kind of unique in that sense. My book is called Nox Warrior Discovery Isles. I do have a sequel in the making, and it should be out in the spring of next year. So I would recommend for people to pick that one up so you can get the sequel as well. And it's kind of like a continuation.
Oh, awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So soon. Yeah. And Amelia, how about you?
Well, I would say that all of my stories, whether they're science fiction or fantasy, they're going to have a little bit of both in them. So if it's a fantasy story, you're probably going to find some sort of ancient technology or other sci-fi elements. Even if it's not really apparent at first, as you dig into the world building, it becomes more and more apparent that there are scientific explanations for a lot of the magic that we see. And vice versa, in my sci-fi stories, mythology and elves and mythological creatures tend to always show up, even if I'm trying to write a purely science fiction story.
Love it. I love science fantasy so much.
And then I would also say that one of the things that I do a little bit differently is all of my stories are published and available for free online on my blog first. So that's something, if you guys are wanting to check out The Shadows of the Ambassadorial Halls, that is actually available on my blog. So you can actually read along. We're on chapter 9 so far.
Oh,
Wow.
Okay.
And the links to everybody's sites are in the description box too. So if you're watching and you're just like, oh, I want to grab the free books, I want to grab these other books, go down in the description box and grab the links out of there. The Blitz is a good time to smash your TBR list. I'm sorry. And you're just racking up like little book squirrels, racking up for the winter.
Oh, 100%. I think there was a Stuff Your Kindle promotion that happened like a couple of weeks, last week. And I was just like, stop everything. I have to go and get as many as I can.
They just had a big fantasy sale too.
Yeah, there's so many books. I mean, do you guys use Goodreads or BookBub to track your reads?
I would say Goodreads for me. I use that a lot.
Yeah, I
try
use
to.
Goodreads. And I've also been using StoryGraph because it has graphs and that just makes me so happy.
I let Tao handle all the numbers. So
I
just hit refresh on the Amazon page, and watch the rating numbers go up.
Yeah. Now that is a good point though, and I haven't brought this up on any of the other panels. And if you are like me and you read way too many books and you forget which ones you wanted to read, you can go into Goodreads or BookBub and mark books that you want to read, and they're both free. I've gotten to where I use BookBub a little more than Goodreads because I didn't find it until about 2 years ago. And when I found it, I was like, have you ever heard of the shopping site Camel, where you put in an item you want and it tracks the price for you and it lets you know when the price is low? Well, BookBub lets me know when books that I've added as want to read are either free or on sale. So I can add the books that I like.
I'm just going to go set that up right now. I bought BookBub. I didn't know you could do that.
The sad thing is I set it up, as an author, I wanted readers to be able to do that because it automatically tracks Amazon or whatever retailers you put in there. But then I started getting my own books through it, and I was like, well, this sort of defeated the purpose real fast. Like, there's a sale on a book you've added from so-and-so. I'm like, yes, please. Send me to the dollar store.
I use mainly Kindle Unlimited for most of my reading since LitRPG is a very heavy KU genre. So you can have up to, I think, 16 or 20 titles now, and then you can actually look in your Amazon profile at things that you've checked out previously. So even if I've added something just for a little while, you can go back in and pull it up later as something you had checked out previously if you forget about it or you're not feeling that book in the
Yeah,
mood.
that's great. Hmm. Yeah, we always, I think I get on the blitzes and we get so busy talking about our own books that sometimes we get off on little tangents about the fact that, yes, we also read. We probably read more than we write, a lot of us. I am going to drop the BookBub link. And no, they're not sponsoring the video. We're not getting anything. None of us are getting anything, including myself, for recommending you to them.
We just all like reading, and ways to make it more affordable is appreciated.
Oh yeah, let me leave that up a second more for the people on Twitter. So outside of reading and what you've been writing in your books, I wanted to talk a little bit about how you got into your indie journey specifically, because there's so many options these days for querying, for going traditional, we've had a couple authors on who've gone with small presses. So why indie?
Utter fear. I'm it's just, well, not fear so much. It's just I just automatically assume that anything I would submit to a publisher is going to be completely and instantly rejected, no matter what. So, and that's got a lot to do with how I was brought up. I have no possible thought of anyone accepting that. So for me, it was Dow coming up and saying, "Hey, you're a writer, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, I will pay for one of your books to be edited if you'll actually put it up somewhere publicly, like on Amazon. And I was like, what? No. Okay. Sure. And I did. And the process was fantastic. The editors were amazing and gave incredible feedback, not very positive feedback, but solid feedback, enough for me to get a good rewrite and then send it back to them and go, hey, this is really good. And that was awesome, and that's how I got started. But if it hadn't been for indie publishing, I wouldn't have written. I would have still written. I was writing constantly, but there's no way anyone will get a chance to read what I'd written. That just wasn't going to happen. So that was a massive opportunity for me, and it's nice to see that there's people reading them and rating them, and they like them, and it feels good. We want to write more.
I love that. I really do.
That gives me all the feels.
Me too. So happy.
I would say I always knew that I wanted to publish independently, kind of from the get-go. Couple of reasons being, one, I'm not that patient when it comes to the process. And so the idea of waiting for someone to reply to me a year, even shopping around short stories and I have to wait like 3-6 months and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to go and publish it already. Because I get so excited to be able to share these stories with people that I want to remove all those boundaries, those boundaries and those obstacles that people have and be able to share the world and the stories that I've created. I've been working on this particular novel series for 12 years. So I just was like, once I was like ready to publish, I'm just like, I'm going to publish this on my blog and I'm going to bring everyone along with me on this ride. And so my motivation is I want as many people as I can to read it and to be able to enjoy the stories. And I do plan on packaging it all together as an actual novel that's like a paperback or an ebook once the full thing is published. And I remember about 5 years ago when I was getting really serious about actually finalizing the draft of this novel. And I was like, I don't know if I've read that much independent fantasy. I've read other genres, sci-fi, historical, but I don't know if I've read that much fantasy. So I started looking for books to read, and that may or may not have delayed the book being published a little with how many amazing novels there are out there and how much more time I spent reading. Because with traditionally published fiction, with the genres that I like in particular, I felt like I had to read tons and tons of books or start a bunch of books to really find one that I was like, oh yes, this is perfect. This is exactly what I'm in the mood for. And with the different communities that I'm in, I can post something and say, hey, I'm looking for a Princess and the Frog retelling that's set in the Victorian era. And I'll have like 10 different options for me to be able to choose from.
I was immediately like, Madame Crystal Butterfly.
See? I love that because there is so much variety and so many options, and everybody publishes really good stuff. And so I would have to say that anybody that thinks that indie fiction automatically equates not good, it's just not the case. You get so much creativity that's totally outside the box of traditional publishing. Traditional publishing has like, this is the formula of what works. And I feel like with indie publishing, you can publish something that 10 people in the world absolutely love, and it changes their life.
Yeah.
And those are the books, some of the books that I just adore.
I agree with her. I feel like that's, exactly what she said. That's one of the reasons why I decided to, go indie as well, because I just feel like you get so many different things that I've run into a ton of stuff that I've never heard of before, like looking up things, and it's just great to have that much variety and like different options.
Yeah. And I think it was a really hard decision, because every book needs its own individual journey, really. And I'd been pitch coaching. So before I ever put a book out self-pubbed, I had helped other people get signed with agents and publishers. And I'm an editor for a living and had done that for a while. And so I had this book and I was like, I didn't think it was good enough. And similar to what David said, I really didn't want to face the rejections that I knew I was going to get. And thankfully stumbled across a mentor who helped me walk through all of that. But it wasn't until my mentor was like, hey, come on, little introvert, get out in the indie community, go meet other authors that write the genre and do the things, that I really started to feel like, wow, there's other people out here who write this stuff, read this stuff. There's not all the judgment I was worried about. And yeah, you get 1-star reviews, but most of the time they are well meant. And I'm still friends. Like I had somebody else on a panel earlier today who had left one of my debut novel, and not as great review, but we talk, and I took a lot for how I could improve my own writing from them. And obviously we still get along. They're on my panels like all this time later. It hits different when you're getting helpful criticism from someone that you trust, that has your best interest at heart, than it does when the first time you do it is from an agent you don't know. So,
and I think there's a big difference between getting a 1-star review from somebody you trust that provides helpful criticism, and a 1-star review that says you write fan fiction like a 12-year-old.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and John says, my sentiments too, I have a very small percentage niche audience, but they are passionate about what I do. Yeah, you found your people.
Yeah, I think it's funny how some authors will be like, oh no, I got a 1-star review, and then I'll read the review and it'll be like, I'm not kidding. There's this book that is, I think you guys might be familiar. It's Pemberley's Dragons by Maria Grace. And it was a 0. It was like they were like, if I could leave 0 stars, I would. This is just Pride and Prejudice seamlessly adding dragons in. It's like,
and you're like, mine?
Sold.
Give it to me?
Absolutely sold.
Add that to the list.
And so it's like one of those things where I think it's funny because I feel like bad reviews can sometimes sell books better than good reviews, because I feel like half the time the 5-star reviews are just screaming. I'm just screaming. I can't form words at this point. And I'm like, okay, good to know it's good, but like, what's in it? Like, I know what the author thinks, but then the 3-star reviews are like, they get into the details, and I'm almost like, okay.
Yeah, it helps determine who your book is for. Because really, reviews are for other readers. And I've been shocked at how many I've had in my journey, especially the one that hit the USA Today bestseller list in the Realm of Darkness set. We had so many reviews come through. And when they were coming through, they were a lot like that. It's like, well, this book wasn't for me because I like XYZ. Well, that just helps people narrow down and get to the right audience, because you don't want people who aren't looking for, like in my case, it was a Tolkien style epic fantasy meets like Magic Knight Rayearth anime-ish impression. And I was like, if you don't like elves, dwarves, that medieval type of fighting mixed in with some portal and jumping through to evil dimensions, you probably are not going to like the book. And so it just helps narrow that down. Got a lot of great comments. Yeah, John says that they welcome all star reviews, basically. 1 and 5 star reviews, 2 or 4. Okay. So going into 2024, what do you guys have on the schedule for the new year, for writing and publishing and events, whatever you want to share? David, I saw you. You get to go.
You're all waiting.
I try not to occupy too much of the panel stuff talk, but anyway, I'm super excited. I'll have the 3rd book in the System Apocalypse trilogy done, hopefully really darn quick in January, and after that, I'm going back to my my beloved epic fantasy that I've been working on. It's been in the back of my head for 30 years. That I've finally committed to writing. And I wrote the first book in it already, and I've had the initial beta reads all came back and said, the writing's really good. This is really good. It's really interesting, but I'm so bored in the first part. And I thought it was going somewhere else. And I don't know, like, it's a really good book. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, you're really telling me that you just can't get into it. So I'm like, that's great, though, because that means I toss the first chapter, maybe the first quarter, and rewrite it, and then that's awesome, because writing the current trilogy that I'm on has just improved my writing so much. Going back at something I wrote 2 years ago, I'm really looking forward to diving into that and just rebuilding that and getting the whole trilogy done and written and out in that year, because then I can write the next books in it, because I've already got a prequel to it that I want to write. Yeah. So I'll be writing all year.
That makes me wonder, are the rest of you strongest? Like, do you have weak parts in the beginning or the end or the middle that you end up having to go back and do when you write?
Yes, and yes, and yes, and yes.
My endings, I love my developmental editor so much, but if you're watching, you know who you are. The most recent book, they were like, this ending sucks. This is a bad ending. And I'm really bad with endings. I almost always have to cut out like the last 3,000 words and rewrite the whole ending.
I would agree with you. I think I'm the same way with endings. It's like I got a great beginning and a middle, and then when it comes to the ending, it's like, oh no, I have to like reword it or rework it to make it better.
Yep.
I would say that the part that I struggle with would be probably like the middle, actually, because I usually have a pretty good idea of what I want the ending to be, and I usually have a pretty strong beginning. But for me, it's that middle part that I get where I have to like reveal the bad guy's plan, and then I'm like, as someone who's more of a discovery writer, I'm like, I'm gonna need to go back and figure out, reverse engineer what that was exactly.
Now, what was your plan again?
That was a rewrite a couple of years ago where it was just like, okay, I'm gonna need to add some stronger motivations here. I'm curious though, do you guys find you're more of like a plotter or more of kind of like a discovery writer?
Oh, I'm a pantser 100%.
I make it up as I go. If you saw my outline compared to the book that ends up getting written, you're like, these are two completely different things.
I agree with you on that one.
I started out as a screenwriter, so it's you got to plot. Like I started out having to know what's on every single page of the book. I've got the exact page count out, and I know what's going on beat to beat to beat to beat. And then I threw that out for the last 2 books, and I love it. Pantsing is fun. I wish I'd known about this a long time ago. It's so great. I mean, and I've done so many freaking screenplays that I'm like writing. I'm like, oh, I should check and make sure I'm still on I nailed the schedule. I guess I've ingrained that. Weird. It's fun.
Yeah.
Pantsing is awesome.
Until you're editing, right? You got to fix it in post.
I think my favorite was my wife telling me that, hey, this is really good. You've got a good book here, but 3/4 of the way through was the end. Can you throw out the rest? It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Or you get one of those editor comments that's like, I have no idea what's going on here. And you're like, oh yeah, I changed that later on. I just missed fixing it in this part.
Yeah, keeping a
Yeah.
spreadsheet on the side with changes and notes is really
Oh, yeah.
helpful. I don't do that, but it would be really helpful if I did.
No, you're just
I
gonna
would say
come back.
that I'm a lot more of a discovery writer, but I've found that it takes me a lot longer to produce like a finished draft. So I'm trying to learn to do more outlining and do like a simple outline. I just have to get the characters to agree with that and not go and do their own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's the trouble.
yeah. So back to 2024 plans then. Amanda, since you were just Amelia, I'm sorry.
No, don't worry. Everyone calls me Amanda. I don't know why. So you know what? Join the club.
So, Amelia, what have you got going on in 2024 for bookish things?
So I'm going to be continuing to publish a new chapter of the Shadows of the Bastionary Halls every other week. So I do it in 2 parts. So every week you have a new installment of the story, and so we're going to be continuing to publish that through the whole year. And so I have lots of stuff already written, and then some pesky characters that some chapters need to be able, they need to obey and do the plot. But I have all the way through March already completed, and then I have some characters that are easier to write than others, so they have some chapters already done. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And I also have some short stories set in the same universe that I'm going to be publishing as they are finished. And I'm going to be publishing some fun short stories that are set in different story worlds that I have.
Awesome. Craig, what you got going in 2024?
So I need to do my 4th book in the System Apocalypse Relentless series. Haven't really started it yet, but I have some ideas floating around that I need to actually put down and outline. But right now I'm working on a sort of coming of age fantasy lit RPG that I'm trying to finish up. It's about 75,000 words right now, so need to bring it home.
Yay!
But that's my current project.
Awesome. And Essie?
So in the spring, like I mentioned, Nox Warrior Secret Realms will be published and available. I'll be posting the date whenever I have that available. I also have 2 other stories that I'm trying to get published in 2024. I just don't know when currently, so I'm trying to finish them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm just trying to get through some drafts and hopefully finish out a couple series, but nothing on pre-order, nothing dated yet. Just like get it done, get it out. Oh, well, thank you all so much for hopping on and chatting and talking with me about your books and writing in this genre, because there's so many ways you can take stories in this genre. So it's always exciting to learn about more authors. Thank you all for hopping on.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you to everybody who's joining. Again, feel free to check out all the authors' links in the description box. We've got them right there for you. And subscribe, because there will be another adventure / portal fantasy one in a couple days. This is a blitz for people who haven't been watching. So over 100 authors will be showing up on the channel within the 28th through January 1st. This is just day 1. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a great day. Bye.
Thank you as well.
Thank
Bye.
you.